Hello and welcome to Make It Plain. I am your host, Alfonso McGriff III, in the house to do the doggone thing once again. I want to thank you for tuning in because you could be doing any number of things, and you chose to tune in and check out the show. Like I said, I definitely appreciate you tuning in. Don't and I say it every week, and I really mean it. I don't take it for granted that you chose to tune in and check out this show. Tonight, I'm going to continue on. This is what I was dealing with in the last 3 weeks because this is very important to me. And it's not necessarily important to others, and I understand that, but it's important to me. And tonight I want to talk about why and how it's important to me. But first, I just want to remind you that on Saturday, May 19th, there will be a Malcolm X celebration going on at the Hartford Public Library from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. That's on a Saturday, May 18th, from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. And there will be, speakers, there's performers, poets, panel discussion, a lot of things going on. So, Saturday, May 18th, Malcolm X celebration. And because things are, that weekend, Malcolm X's birthday is actually May 19th. And so on Sunday, May 19th, I'll be hosting a conversation about the illusion of progress for Black people in America. And that will take place at the Kabbalah House, 1023 Albany Avenue in Hartford. Doors open at 5. Program will start promptly. Doors open at 4. The program will start promptly at 5 o'clock p.m. And I'm going to talk about the illusion of progress for Black people in America. It's not going to be just a lecture type thing. It's going to be an interactive conversation that I'm willing to entertain because I'm open for learning. I'm going to be sharing a perspective and then looking for how other people feel and looking for responses to my perspective. Because ultimately I want to know if my thought process is standing on solid ground, or if it's not, then that's because I'll learn from something from someone that'll make more sense to me. So that's going to be on Sunday, May 19th. And it's, again, out of respect for the messages and the information Brother Malcolm X left us on his date of birth. I'll be hosting this conversation about the illusion of progress for Black people in America. And that's on Sunday, May 19th, Kabbalah House, 1023 Albany Avenue in Hartford. And then on the 18th, that's Saturday, from noon until 5, there'll be a program at downtown Hartford Public Library. So, put that on the calendar. Then on July 20th, we have the Harlem Book Fair. And True Books always have a bus or buses going to the Harlem Book Fair. So if you're interested in attending the Harlem Book Fair on Saturday, July 20th, you want to get in touch with True Books. And he has tickets and buses and all that good stuff. And I'll be presenting at the Harlem Book Fair McGriff's Unique Approach to Effective Communication. I'll be doing a workshop at the Harlem Book Fair as well. So that's July 20th. And then, of course, on August 3rd, we're going to have the Taste of the Caribbean in downtown Hartford. It's a great event, great food, great people, great music. So you want to put that on the calendar as well. And then finally, on August 17th, Saturday, August 17th, I will be hosting an American Oldies party. It's a BYOB. It's at the West Indian Club. Saturday, August 17th. So you can reserve tables of 10 in advance, and all you have to do is get in touch with me if you're interested in that. So And my number is 8604787880. Again, that number is 8604787880. So those are the things that will be coming up in the next few months. Put them on your calendar, among all the many other things that will be keeping you busy for the next few summer months. Now, as for tonight, I definitely get a lot of feedback. Well, I have received a lot of feedback as it relates to the last 3 weeks and the last 3 shows. And tonight I just want to respond to a few things. The number one thing I want to respond to, and I only do this because I know it's necessary for black people to know this. I don't have a problem with white people. White people are part of the human race. So when I speak in reference to our historical relationship with white people, it's not anything against white people. It's just speaking about the facts based on my own limited understanding of our historical relationship. It has been long and consistent. And it's very similar to white people's relationship with other people they've encountered and their relationship with their own people. There's a long, consistent history of the same type of things that have taken place. So this is not about speaking against white people. It's about speaking about the truth about our relationship so that we don't have to get mad every time white people act like white people. So somebody said to me, well, Alfonso, you making a blanket statement about white people. And I said, yeah, and I'm comfortable doing it. We make blanket statements about a lot of things. And for those it doesn't pertain to, that's okay. But I have to deal with in general in order to protect myself. I can't deal with the exceptions and the anomalies. I have to deal with what I know in general. Alfonso, you're just as bad as racist because you're judging people based on the color of their skin. Okay, let me deal with that. In nature, they have birds, they have monkeys, they have turtles, they have frogs, they have lions or cats. They have all kinds of things, different types of insects. They have bees. But if you know something about these things, a lot of them have, might be a lot of birds, and they're all birds. But when you see their outer appearance, because of what you might know about the history of birds that look that particular way, they help you know more about the bird as soon as you see the outer appearance. Same with turtles, same with any of these different types of living things. It could be flowers, it could be anything. They're all flowers, they're all birds, they're all frogs. But based on their outer appearance, because of what we know about their history, we're able to distinguish which type of frog, which type of bird, which type of whatever that we're dealing with. Now let me give you the example of cats. Out in wildlife, you have cats. You have different types of cats. You have lions, which are cats. You have tigers, which are cats. You have leopards, which are cats. And you have panthers, black panthers. They're all cats. But yet and still, because of their outer appearance, there are certain things that we understand about them in general. If you watch The Wild Kingdom enough, If you see a lion, though it's a cat, lion's behavior is different from a tiger. Though it's a cat, a tiger's behavior is a little different from a leopard. And to say it's a cat, but a leopard's behavior is a little bit different from a panther. So now when we generalize about lions, tigers, leopards, and panthers, we're talking about the general behavior of each cat as we understand it, even though they're all cats. And we're able to speak about their general behavior because based on how they look on the outside, it gives us an indication of how that particular cat behaves. Well, believe it or not, as it relates to us human beings, in general, we can see different groups of people and then have a general understanding of the behavior based on the outside appearance. And there are always exceptions. The problem is, when we see black people, we have no idea what we're going to get. Because black people, we have become culture chameleons. Culture chameleons, which means I can't say whatever the reason because it has a lot to do with thousands of years of colonial contamination. But for many reasons, as black people, we're willing to take on the way of life, the language, the history, the culture of any group of people on the planet except our own. And again, there are many reasons for that. So black people in America in particular, we're like that Black Panther who only wanders around at night and hunts at night and feeds at night. But we're that Black Panther who's running around in the broad daylight chasing zebras and just totally out of pocket because we have no idea about our true history and culture and selves. So what happens is when we're running around during the daytime acting a fool, all the other cats are saying, well, you look at this fool. But nobody's taking into consideration that the panther has been raised amongst a whole different group of people, somebody other than a panther. And the panther's been given a whole different understanding of life. So the panther has taken on the life of something else. So it's running around and rolling around in the daytime, and that's us. I've said, if you can understand how a 17-year-old can be born and raised in a family of thieves for 17 years, by the time you talk to him, his consciousness and mindset is such that whenever he decides he wants something, his first thought is how can I steal in order to get it? Because that's the only thing he knows. It's the only thing he knows. It's the only thing he knows for 17 years. And you can preach to him and tell him you need to make better decisions and say all you want. But after 17 years of conditioning to think thief, to think stealing first, that 17-year-old is going to hear you, but it's going to be a minute before it sinks in. After 17 years, it's going to be a minute before he can be reconditioned to help to understand how to make better choices. No matter how frustrated you get, no matter how much you dog him and call him a thief, at the end of the day, it's going to take more than you criticizing the 17-year-old, smashing the 17-year-old, in order for the 17-year-old to begin changing his or her thought process and habits. Now, if you can understand that with a 17-year-old born in a house full of thieves, then you should also be able to understand black people who were born and raised in a house of barbarians, who for over 260 years have had an unedited, uninterrupted conditioning going on. 260 years, generation after generation, even to the point where they didn't even have to focus so much on the conditioning because the parents took over the conditioning. No different than a bear in a circus or whatever, lion in the zoo. So, after 260 years, we are not acting like white people. After 17 years, the kid is not acting like a thief, he is a thief. After 260 years, we're not acting like white people, we are white people. And so for the wonderful, intelligent, educated black folks who want to call and say, well, what about what we're doing to each other? What I say to that is, are you surprised? Look who trained us for 260 unedited, uninterrupted years. Look who conditioned us. Well, you're not making those choices. Yeah, that's true. It's going to be some that don't. But on the whole, look at how we're behaving. We've been thoroughly trained by white people to be white people. And that's why no matter where you go in the world, most black people all over the world are going to carry the colonists, or they're going to carry colonial contamination. They're going to carry with them the colonists' mores and language. And you see somebody like me in Sweden, and he'll run around saying he's Swedish. Or you see somebody like me in France or Belgium or England or whatever, and we're running around claiming this. Even when I was in West Africa, I was talking to a girl, a young lady in Senegal, and she told me she only speaks French. So we're pretty jacked up, but we don't want to deal with that. We want to keep presenting ourselves as we're okay. Let's just move from here. Let's just forget about everything that happened. We are the only group of people that would ever even think of suggesting something like that. There's no other group of people on the planet that just says, let's just move from here. Let's forget about the past. Let that go. Nobody says that but black people. We say that to each other. Know why? Because we're white people in every sense of the word. And if we're going to make progress the way we claim we want to, then we have to acknowledge that and then move from that understanding. So I question the civil rights movement. I question Jackie Robinson. I question the idea of intentionally putting yourself in the position to be abused in order to be accepted by the abuser. I question that behavior. Now, I don't care if it happened 1,000,000 years ago or yesterday. That behavior is not a behavior that represents a person in the right mind. Any person who puts themselves in a position to endure abuse in order to be accepted by the abuser cannot possibly be in their right mind. Now, that's not necessarily a fact, because I ain't no psychologist. That's my perspective. That ain't even necessarily the truth, but that's my perspective. It is my perspective that you cannot put yourself in a situation where you're enduring abuse in order to be accepted by the abuser anywhere on the planet, at any year, any date, any time, and that be sane behavior. And last week I gave the example. I said, listen, I pledged in a fraternity, and I voluntarily allowed myself to be abused for 6 to 7 weeks in order to be accepted by the fraternity or the abuser. That, to me, to this day, is still the dumbest thing I ever did in my life. That's what I said. Because I couldn't have been in my right mind to put myself, to let somebody treat me like a slave. And I could have walked away at any time and didn't. Something was wrong with me. I have no problem saying that. And there's no knock on the fraternal organization, because they're doing their thing, trying to make a positive contributions to society, and there's nothing wrong with that. But to put myself in a position to endure abuse in order to be accepted by the abuser, no. So, the reasons given for participating in this behavior was equal rights. Well, when I start asking people about equal rights, everybody's saying things like, well, we wanted to have the same rights white people had. That's a problem. What other group of people on the planet operates based on some other culture's standards as what's best for them? Somebody among us was supposed to come together and have a meeting and say, okay, we don't want equal rights, we want these rights. Now, how do we acquire these rights? And this is why we want these rights. We want these rights so that we can live in an environment that has peace and harmony and survive, pass our money with each other, whatever, however we defined it, we were supposed to define it. We weren't supposed to just look around and just decide our rights we want the same ones they have. No, we're coming out of an extremely unique situation. We're coming out of a situation that no other group of people on the planet can say they come out of. It's a unique situation, so we just can't come out of it. We want the rights they got. No, we have to define what it is we want. These are the rights we want, and move from there for these reasons. Even if we're the only ones who knew why we wanted those rights, we had to define those rights. And one of the things Malcolm X talked about, how are you going to be fighting for equal rights and you're not even extending human rights by the people you're trying to get equal rights from? So, we want human rights. Okay, what are human rights? Well, it's obvious white people didn't understand what human rights were because they refused to treat us like humans. And that's not the past, that's today. Still today. So to this day, we still haven't defined what white rights serve our best interests. We still haven't defined for ourselves what human rights actually, we still haven't realized you can never get equal anything from somebody that doesn't even treat you like a human or see you as a human. Legal rights. We want legal rights. Okay, we want legal rights. Well, what legal rights are we referring to? Because are we talking about we want certain legal rights because we have plans on making certain legal mistakes? We have to have these discussions. How do we define life and living? Just by what the white people are doing? Is that how we define it? That's still going on today. We still haven't defined that yet. What is life and living for us? We're coming out of a foul situation, extremely unique situation. What is life and living for us? This is nothing that's just taken for granted. How do we define life and living? What is that? We're running around here chasing the American dream. We haven't even defined an African dream or whatever a dream. Whatever the dream is that represents us, that serves our best interest. Have we defined that? All I've been hearing about is the American dream. We run around chasing that. Problem solving. Have we established an approach to solving problems? No. We're running around doing it the way white people do it because they represent our standard for what's best for us. As much as people want to help me understand why it's a waste of time to talk about the past, it's the past that follows us. If our problem-solving skills have been defined for us by white people, well, the only thing we're going to do is argue and fight because that's all they've always done. Argue and fight. The problem-solving approach is barbaric. Right now, you listen to the news, you turn on any of the news networks, you see some white dude on there talking about how you're supposed to go into Syria and slap somebody's face and knock them down and straighten things out because we're America, the powerful. It's the only way they know how to solve problems is to be in a fight and drop a bomb. Are those the kind of problem-solving skills we're going to limit ourselves to, arguing and fighting and shooting and cutting each other? Because we are white people, and we demonstrated that their problem-solving skills haven't worked for us. Their problem-solving skills have been a detriment to us. So this is very important to understand that white people cannot be our standard for what's best for us. So we haven't defined problem solving for ourselves. We run around here solving problems like white people. Every time I hear about another shooting, stabbing, killing, hurting, whatever, we doing to damage each other. Those are our problem solving skills. And we are very good at it because white people trained us well. Or we followed their lead well. It's how we solve problems. One of the things I've heard plenty of times, especially in the last week, if it wasn't for what Jackie Robinson and others like him did and the civil rights movement, you wouldn't be able to sit in that chair and run your mouth the way you're doing. Well, let me say this. I'll say it again and again 1,000 times. Jackie Robinson taking that abuse and those civil rights people taking those ass whoopings and abuse in order to be accepted by white people in whatever, anywhere in the country, did not put me in this chair to run my mouth. We don't know how I arrived here. And them taking ass whoopings damn sure didn't put me in this chair. Now, that might sound arrogant. The little young Negro don't know what he's talking about. Whatever. It's okay. I'm good with it. You have a different perspective than I do, and that's fine. That's what it's about, different perspectives. But I will not believe that our ancestors who took that abuse, our ancestors who were killed, our ancestors who were spit on, our ancestors who had limbs cut off, our ancestors who were beat till they were unrecognized, our ancestors who had their penises cut off, women who had their wombs split open while they were pregnant. I don't believe our ancestors doing that put me in this chair to speak in front of y'all. What I believe is our ancestors doing a lot of that stuff helped continue to establish white people as our standard today. And that's the problem. And it needs to be questioned, and it needs to be talked about, and I'm going to question it, and I'm going to talk about it. The reason why we have to talk about it today, because it's quite possible we could have made better choices yesterday. How can we not talk about it? How can we not talk about it? Today we need to know, could we have made better decisions that could have led to different results? It's not heroic behavior, getting abused by white people in order to be accepted by white people. There's nothing heroic about that. Nothing. There's something wrong with that behavior on any level, for anybody to endure abuse in order to be accepted by an abuser. There's no, that's not acceptable behavior on any level, at any year, at any time. And to teach that and promote that and have these people make this Jackie Robinson movie and all of these other Negro hero movies where we getting our ass kicked by white people so they will accept us. No, that's not acceptable behavior. That's not heroic, and our present generations don't be needing to be contaminated with that thought process, because something's wrong with that thought process. One of the things we could have done, we could have totally withdrawn from entertainment, period. Baseball, football, basketball, tap dancing, all of that. We could have withdrawn from that and focused on recovery, recognizing that we were in a sick state and we needed to focus on our own recovery. There's no telling where we would be right now if we had done that. I don't know. But I'm saying that's still a decision that we can make today. We're so thoroughly indoctrinated into this system and set up because of the illusion of progress set forth by so-called heroes who took ass whoopings from white people to be accepted by white people. That's compromising self-respect. So I've been told, you need to talk about, how we can save our money. You need to talk about, homes and what we can do to pool our money or whatever so we can have a safe environment for our families. We need to talk about family. We need to talk about education. That's true. But if white people are our standard, then when we talk about money, we end up like James Brown and Sammy Davis Jr. and whoever else, Red Fox. All these people made all of these millions of dollars and died broke because they were trying to live like white people, do it the way white people did it. Well, if white people are your standard, you're going to end up catching a bad one. Ask Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. When the last 2 years he played in the NBA, he had to play for this, I think it was $2 million a year because some white man took and ran off with all his money. Ask all of these athletes and entertainers who are trying, where white people are their standard, who had millions of dollars. Not just those who are good at managing $50, $60, $70, $80,000 a year salaries and have enough money saved up so they can pay their bills for 8 months to a year, a pension, a 401k. I ain't talking about that basic stuff. I'm talking about cats that had crazy money. As long as white people are our standard, there's nothing on across the board. We can talk about money all day, but every day another so-called black superstar who made millions for white folks is foreclosing on a house. This sister, Taylor Swift just bought a house for $17 million. Know what? Ain't nobody gonna foreclose on that. All she gotta do is make sure she pay her taxes. But all of the Negroes listening to the wonderful tax advice from the white man and white people, and Negroes trained by white people, taking out mortgages when they got money to pay for the house. Let me get off of that. Anyway, as long as white people are our standard, our financial woes are going to continue as well. As long as we don't exercise a certain amount of discipline ourselves, our financial woes will have some challenges. So we have to first have some self-discipline. Well, we have to first establish for ourselves how to make money important, how to make money work for us. And then we have to exercise some discipline when we get it so that we can acquire it, or when we do get it. Shelter, homes. Somewhere along the line, there's something wrong with how our people are purchasing homes because we catching bad ones. But we ain't defined a standard for ourselves on the best way to approach purchasing a home. We listening to all the experts and we gotta define stuff for ourselves. Family, education. education. I'm telling you now, so-called education is a complete joke. It's at least 10 to 15 years behind, and it's a joke. It's a comedy. It's nothing that should be respected, the so-called education today. Because if the kids, but we be going by standards set by white people. But if our children aren't made to understand that they have to create their own jobs, if they weren't being told that 15 years ago, they're already in trouble. If they weren't told that they need to go to college to figure out how to create a way to create their own jobs, the education is bogus. If the education doesn't teach money management, it's bogus. And the education is bogus. If we don't know what a man is, or a father, or a woman, or a mother, if we haven't defined that for ourselves and we're trying to operate based on standards set by Leave It to Beaver and white people, we're going to stay in trouble. So I'm saying there are many reasons why white people cannot be our standard for what's best for us today. And when they bring these movies out and other things to promote white people as our standard, and then not only just promote white people as our standard, but promote us willing to endure abuse in order to be accepted by white people, that is not heroic. It's not heroic. That's some flawed thinking going on. That's my perspective. It ain't necessarily the truth. It ain't necessarily right. But that's just my perspective. We're going to open up the lines, 860-524-8920. 860-524-8920. You got a thought? You can call in and express your thoughts. Yes, caller, make it plain.
Yeah, Alfonso, good to see you again, my brother, and all the good vibrations you're bringing to all of us. But one of the questions I wanted to ask you about race relations. You know, the whole idea of race relations. I always thought that there was something wrong about that. I asked the African guy, I actually talking to him about race relations in America. He asked me, he said, what is race relations? What does that mean? And I said, well, it's a concept here about how white, and this term, I don't even know, that if it was coined by the black community or the white community of race relations, this concept. And the African guy said, well, how come y'all just don't have human relationships? Now, I'm gonna let you think about that and hopefully respond to that comment about race relationships. Because every time you watch the news or, read the newspaper, you hear about race relations. And the concept is kind of odd to me that, we don't have what you're supposed to have is human relationships, but instead it's based on race. I'm gonna let you respond. Good to see you again, man.
All right. Well, race relations are only necessary because white men have never had any respect for human relations. Race relations are necessary because white men created racism. And when I talk about racism, I'm talking about the idea of using everything in your power including weapons and anything else, to oppress and maintain the oppression of another group of people because of their skin color. That's how I see racism. White men have created racist environments in every environment they've gone into where there were already indigenous people there. So when we talk about race relations, what we're talking about is somebody trying to identify an illusion that we can have a better relationship with white people. Well, the reason why that's an illusion, because the problem of race is white people, not anybody else. If we had a race problem, all we have to do is just go into the history of this country and black people would be running around killing white people at every move. Matter of fact, it would be a race war until one of the races is gone. And in most cases, technically, we don't have the weapons and power to involve ourselves in a race war. Even if we had the spirit of being in a war like that, it wouldn't matter. And we would have some challenges in that kind of situation. But we don't even have the spirit. White people are walking around comfortably among us, knowing the history. And when I say comfortably among us, I don't mean totally comfortable. I mean, but comfortable enough among us knowing the history. Now, if somebody had done any group of white people on the planet the way white people have done us, we have an example. The Germans and the Jews. That's two groups of white folks. And these Jews are still chasing down 200- and 300-year-old people, trying to get them to get them. We don't have that. We don't have that. So race relations is nothing more than the illusion that there's an attempt for white people to have better relationships with non-white people. The funny thing is, if anybody goes to a race relations meeting, the main people that need to be there are white men. You're usually absent. It's white women, black women, Puerto Rican women, men, black, African women, men. Everybody there but white men. The main culprits for racism are not there. And it's difficult to have human relations in a racist environment. It's difficult to have human relations in a racist environment. So human relations sound nice. And whoever the African is trying to act so we are the worldly, but why can't you just have human relations? They ain't even got human relations in Africa. And I'm calling out the whole damn place, all the country. Well, they don't even have human relations in Africa. You're trying to give somebody advice here that has some human relations. Come on, man. White folks went to Africa tearing that place up for thousands of years before we got here. So anywhere white people have been, there are no human relations. It's always race relations. And that's how I see it. It ain't necessarily fact, it ain't necessarily the truth. It's just my perspective, based on my own limited understanding. And I'm always open to be taught. And for me to be taught, what you say has to make more sense than what I've already understand. 860-524-8920. 860-524-8920. Think about it. Anybody who went to see the Jackie Robinson movie knows white people not going to see that movie. they don't want to see themselves in that light. That movie was made for black folks, especially the new generation of black folks, to keep them preoccupied with race. See, we need to get away from being preoccupied with race and then just understand white people and then move on with life. That way we don't expect anything different from white people. And everything, we can just keep it moving. And then move with that understanding. We have a caller. Yes, caller, make it plain.
All right. Yeah, Alfonso, I got a question. Seems to me that every person that speaks out about, or anyone who speaks out in reference to the crimes and the atrocities committed by Europeans towards any group of indigenous people, whether it's here in America or, in Africa or in Australia or Tasmania, any of them places, here, especially here in America, if you're black, for example, Reverend Jeremiah Wright, they demonize, the media quickly jumps on them and they demonize them like they did Jeremiah Wright. And Jeremiah Wright was speaking from a position of what he knew. So what's the reason for all this demonizing? We can't even speak about historical facts. It's stuff that happened, like George Washington, the first so-called president, by age 9, he owned 11 slaves. While he run around talking freedom and liberty for us and for all. I'm gonna let you. Because this is a phenomenon like I notice all the time. Anybody, and I use Jeremiah Wright because he's a good example when he said, in reference to all the crimes that have been committed by Europeans here on the American continent and against black people here, against the natives. And he said, God damn America. Well, you can't say God bless America for killing over 100 million Native Americans. I can't say God bless America. I can't say it today. Over 100 million Africans killed by Europeans. How can you say God bless America?
Well, see,
I'm gonna let you respond.
one of the major things is that white people created us over the last 260 years, so they know us better than we know ourselves. And one thing that white people know about us is that they have trained the majority of us so well that if they speak about being uncomfortable with something one of us said, then those of us who've been trained very well also speak out in discomfort and support that. One of the things that the mistakes that Jeremiah Wright makes and so many others of us make is we speak in an angry, venomous way. And when we speak in an angry, venomous way, we forget that how well trained our people are as it relates to these self-defense mechanisms that we have for white people. And the other thing is, you don't have to be angry and venomous if you're just speaking about how it is. It's just like tonight, I'm not angry with white people. I don't have to be. All I have to do is understand them based on a consistent historical relationship. And that's all I'm talking about. So it makes it easy to come against him when you speak in an angry and venomous way against anybody. It makes it easy for people to attack you or come after you in that way. But we don't have to be angry about white people or at white people. All we have to do is understand who we're dealing with based on a long, consistent history. And then we can move on. And we don't have to be contaminated with race. We can let race go. And what I mean when I say let race go, it means remove this emotional expectation that we have for white people to be different than they've always been. Once we can remove that emotional expectation of white people to be different than they've always been, then when they do what they do, we just get a better understanding of what we need to do, as opposed to constantly reacting over and over again to their consistent behavior. Yes, caller, make it plain. Yes, caller.
Yeah, I'm just calling to make a comment and a question. And one, I don't know, I believe your name is Brother Alfonso, is it?
Yeah.
True? Okay, I don't know if you know the history that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad speaks of in his books and in the temples, but there's a reason, that I believe white people are the way they are, and a reason that there's a reason for all that history and why the way things are today. You know what I'm saying? And I believe that history because I try to figure out why white people think the way they do towards native people, whether it be black, Puerto Ricans, whatever, Hispanic, Indians. But I believe it's in their nature, according to the way that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches through the minister Louis Farrakhan. You know what I'm saying? So, to the listeners, to you, if you could, that's my comment, if you could elaborate on if you've heard of those teachings or you've been to the temples, whatever the case may be.
Okay.
If you elaborate what you think about that. I respect your opinions. I respect where you're coming from. But there's a reason for everything. And there's a reason that things are the way they are. But we can't stay there either. We got to move on as a people and unite the system and build a nation, basically, or a territory of our own so that we won't have to deal with this 500+ year oppression. That's my comment and question.
All right.
If you could elaborate based on that.
Thanks for the call.
Thank you.
I only have 2 minutes left for this show, but I will say this. I have read some and I have heard some about that history, but to be quite honest, I don't need to know why they are who they are or how they arrived at that place in order to know who they are and how to deal with them. The history is so long and so consistent and the behavior is so consistent that the only thing that matters to me is that. That's all I need. So how and why they are who they are, I've heard a lot of different stories about how they arrived, period, and why they are who they are. I didn't just hear the one spoken by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I've heard other stories as well. And for me, I just have to go by what is. And what I'm experiencing, what I've seen, and other things as it relates to their history, and that's how I have to deal with it. I have to deal with the reality of the long, consistent historical behavior to control everything by any means necessary. White people's desire is to control everything by any means necessary at the expense of everything. By any means necessary and unnecessary at the expense of everything, including human life, plant life, animal life, and the whole planet Earth at the expense of the whole planet. So they don't have a stop button. And we can start going into a calcified pineal gland. We can go into a whole number of things. Their historical origin is the planet Earth, whereas most indigenous people's historical origin is the universe. It's a whole lot of reasons. But when I'm dealing with the reality of this environment that they created and who we're dealing with, we have to go by that. And that's what I'm going by. So we don't have to be upset And we don't have to speak with